I'm still always trying to wrap my head around the gold, like the gold backed dollar. I think one of the hardest things that I have a difficult time with when we talked about gold backed currency is that in order for that to happen, all the central governments would have to give up their control, right? Like any central government that goes to a gold backed currency loses their control to manipulate their currency. And quite frankly, even a digital currency with an open source ledger sort of does that as well, right?
Yeah,
Now, if you're in a dictatorship, that might not matter because you might just not give everyone access to the ledger, or you don't care what their opinion is. But I could see in the U.S. that being a really big issue if you can have members of Congress pulling up the open source code and you know, for lack of a better term, blowing the whistle. So I don't think like the central bank digital currency really replaces, or like the theories around that or concerns. I don't think that really replaces the dollar. I don't think gold, they can't do it because then you give up the control that you can use to
it,
manipulate it, right? And the political
exactly.
warfare that you can use with, managing exchange rates. I, so I don't, yeah,
Yeah, no,
it is going to be
exactly.
a very interesting world.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a couple interesting things there. So, yeah, I mean, with trying to go back to the dollar, the gold reserve, it's funny. My mom has said this. She's like, "Oh, we just need to go back to a gold backed dollar," and I was like, "That's impossible." It's like saying, it's you move from, I used to work at American Express, and you had, charge cards and credit cards. Charge cards can't revolve a balance. You have to pay it off every month. Credit cards, you revolve a balance. And there's still a lot of American Express cardholders that just own the charge cards. And so, as a country, we swapped from charge card to, credit card back when, Nixon, again, took us off the gold standard in the 70s, 71, on a Sunday night, no less, kind of surreptitiously. And, that was great because for the first several decades, we used that charge card intelligently. We used it to invest in, continue the analogy, build my small business, and et cetera. Now, the last couple of decades, America's used that charge card for, cruises and cars and, stuff that isn't positive ROI at the national GDP level. And so now it's, we've got a huge balance and the interest rate is high, but we can't pay it all off. We can't go back to a charge card. We can't go back to a gold standard. So yeah, you're 100% right there. It's like that cat's out of the bag and it's literally impossible to ever go back. So it'd have to be something new, like, and it'd have to be something multi-global, I think, like multi-country, like IMF special drawing rights. I'm not an advocate for that, but I'm just saying that theoretically, I think that has the best shot of, having enough credibility worldwide. I appreciate, the kind of, open, non-permission based open ledger, immutable, transfer of value, blah, blah, blah. The problem you get into immediately, everybody recognized this, including, the woman who runs the MIT task force that was working with the Fed on this is, well, obviously nothing the government, to your point, nothing the government does is going to be truly, immutable open source, code. And then with that, all it really is just a digital dollar. It's not, blockchain at all. And then you're just giving up massive privacy, concerns. And by the way, if you thought that was just theoretical, all you have to do is look at China, where they launched their CBDC in a massive airdrop back in 2021. And they've since used it with great effect to control people's spending, geofence their spending, restrict their spending to certain items on certain times of days, attach it to their social score, their social credit score. And so now I even think that people that might have been, pro central bank digital currency, 2 or 3 years ago are kind of looking at how it's played out. Granted, that's an authoritarian regime, sure, but politicians are politicians, and it's not too many jumps to see how that could massively start infringing on people's privacy rights here in the States. So I think now, again, to your point, I think that's an even tougher sell. I do think it makes sense for smaller countries, and El Salvador is kind of a good template for that. It's like, all right, we don't have credibility as a tiny, small, Latin American country, but if we fix our currency to crypto, now all of a sudden, we're attractive for international investors and, things like that, aside from whatever kind of, tax incentives they're offering. Just the credibility of that system in and of itself can kind of,
Mm-hmm.
get a small country up and running. I do anticipate we'll see more of that in African nations, if it's very appealing for them. Again, if all of a sudden you can flip a switch and say, all right, we're going to agree to play by these rules. Yes, we're boxing ourselves in terms of, what we can do down the road. But right now we need it, and that's going to attract foreign investment and blah blah blah. So yeah, yeah, no, it is interesting to see. In my mind, it's interesting to see. All right, what does the dollar slide look like? How prolonged is it? And what else emerges? Is it just kind of gold? Does a multinational gold-backed currency get traction? Maybe do CBDCs get traction? Either in America or elsewhere. I don't know, but there's volatility in that kind of global reserve currency system right now. America is still the global reserve currency, but that's an increasingly kind of tenuous purge. And so,
but it's super valuable though, right? Like the US needs to have that global reserve currency status. And I think in the central bank thing, one of the things I always keep taking my mind back to is the people I have talked to. And well, look, when I was in the military, I was not a high speed operator. I don't have a super cool, history and background there, but I have friends that do, and I've talked to plenty of people that have, and sometimes it's as simple as, the guy that was the finance clerk, and you hear the stories about, the payoffs that they did during the wars in the Middle East of, millions of dollars in cash to different parties that the U.S. was essentially bribing, right? The U.S. government pays these bribes, and that happens all over the world. And if you got rid of cash and you got rid of that for a central bank digital currency, and you were the contraparty on those deals taken, you'll take the world's reserve currency. You don't want to take the house chips. It's like that gives up even some more control there. So the central bank digital currency thing, I don't want to get too hung up on that, but I think there's a lot of issues where that just doesn't really come to fruition, which does leave hard assets. And you're talking about internationally, that's going to manifest itself likely in metals, right? There's, seven precious metals. Right. So there's only seven compounds on the periodic table that, what is it? They can't corrode. You can't destroy them. You can hold them, right? Like you can't have oxygen couldn't be an element because you can't contain it and transfer it the right way. So it's really 7 once you kind of X out all the parameters of what won't work. And it's gold, silver, platinum, palladium, iridium, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it's only 5. Yeah. Oh, and they don't decay. That's the other big part, right? Uranium, which we can talk about, the uranium prices, but,
well, yeah, it's, so I mean, back to that point about, what emerges. I mean, I don't see how it's not gold and silver. It's then, then the question becomes, all right, what does that look like? And, it could just be, like I said, I mean, I anticipate, even in our, even in some of our funds and accounts, we like the miners because, you've kind of got operationally got a leverage play on, whatever the underlying metal is, but also it's, you're starting to get a retail play. Some of these guys are starting to diversify into, wholesaling to, the JP Bullions that you see on, late night television, that used to make fun of, your grandparents for buying the gold, Golden Eagles coin. But again, I think I think the retail crowd is going to start jumping in on that because, again, this, it's grocery prices going up like this, car insurance going up like this, inflation's nasty because it hits everybody right in the pocketbook.